Good afternoon again. Jim Cooper here, editor-in-chief at Digiday. We're at the Possible Conference 2025 on the second afternoon, and I'm really excited to have Daniel Block, who is the head of corporate business development at Fetch, which is a brand that is very popular in my household. So across these 3 days, there are a ton of media agencies, ton of brands, ton of ad tech people of all stripes. What do you think is going to be the most important conversation you're going to take away from this experience?
Yeah, I mean, for us, obviously with the macroeconomic climate, we're heavily focused on creating experiences for brands where not only are we helping them achieve their goals, but ultimately moving products. So, coming out of this conference, we're most excited about the future of our business as it relates to helping brands drive true business outcomes. And that's things like driving incremental sales, incremental units, acquiring and engaging and retaining new customers, and ultimately, using artificial intelligence and LLMs on top of that to make sure that we're delivering the right message to the right consumer at the right time. So really excited to be here at Possible and talking to you and really understanding the underpinning of what's going to happen in the future of artificial intelligence.
Talk a little bit about the AI and large language models. That seems like it'd be like a really strong solution engine, maybe on the tail end of the second or third hype cycle. How are you using it to get outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, so for Fetch, it's really interesting, right? We sit on 80 million receipts on a weekly basis, $180 billion worth of GMV annually, and we've got a really engaged consumer base. So 13 million monthly active users are scanning on average 31 receipts per person per month. So we've got a really strong, persistent purchase behavior across those consumers. What that allows us to do is better understand not only current purchase behavior, but propensity to buy in the future. And what's really unique about some of the things that were coming out from an ad serving perspective, as well as really just a personalization piece, is all deep rooted in ranking and relevance. So we're using artificial intelligence through all of that purchase behavior to make sure that each individual consumer's app looks different than the next, delivering the right message at the right time, and ultimately showing them the right offer.
Yeah, because that's a lot of first party data to sort through. It'd take forever for us humans to sort it through. So yeah, it's really interesting. In general, the economy seems to be in a kind of a funky place. A lot of uncertainty. Like, what's your prognosis? And like, are you looking at any sort of indicators to give you some signal for next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, so we always look at purchase data in totality, right? Are people scanning less receipts? Is the total GMV down? Are house brands outpacing traditional consumer packaged goods brands and things like that? What we're talking to brands about really right now is you have to really lean into performance. I think it's been clear and cyclical at times when people have pulled back on advertising spend. Ultimately, that hasn't shown to be the right decision.
Right.
So, especially when you're looking at performance-based marketing companies such as Fetch, which is all focused on moving incremental units and showing, $1 in is $3 out in terms of incremental return on ad spend. So we're closely monitoring the situation, but ultimately, we feel like we're primed for the consumer who wants to be rewarded in a circular economy for actually spending money and getting something tangible in return.
Sure. So you're not getting rid of brand, but you're sort of leaning into performance a bit more in this moment in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, the bulk of our business is done in performance, right? So we're slowly moving up the funnel. A lot of people are talking to us about consideration. We've got a bunch of new units in the application that are focused on media. So that's obviously upper funnel. And we truly feel like the future of Fetch is being able to drive any outcome for any brand marketer all the way through the funnel. But right now, the brands are coming to us and saying, we want to be focused highly on incremental units. And the really nice thing about working with Fetch is, unless we're selling those units and moving them off the shelves, a brand does not have to pay. So in terms of macroeconomic climate, we expect brands to really lean into performance-based advertising. Obviously, we have multiple solution sets across the entire base, but giving them a right to win.
Do you pay attention to the retail media space and any or signals that come out of that very expanding but slightly chaotic world?
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, for sure, right? So we feel like we sit squarely in the retail media space. We've got a bunch of retail media partners, Albertsons Media Collective, Dollar General, and a few others that we're going to announce here soon publicly. helping kind of expand reach and network on top of Fetch. Ultimately, that space is obviously ripe for consolidation. Fetch sits in an interesting spot because we have all of the data in a completely agnostic fashion, down to the receipt level. So, with consolidation in the retail space and people trying to figure out how to do more with less, we feel like Fetch is a good spot to have distribution at all of your retailers when you're looking to kind of ultimately move those units.
Any reaction to the cookie deprecation U-turn from last week? Does that what impact does that have on you guys?
It's been the flavor of the week for a few years. I
Yeah.
think, ultimately for us, we've got a persistent logged in user base, 13 million monthly active users who are really engaged. It's 1 in 10 households across the United States. We've got aggressive plans to move into 1 in every 3. At the end of the day, we are highly focused on the relationship that we have with our consumer. So we feel like no matter what regulation happens, it'll allow us to continue that relationship from a data perspective. And ultimately, kind of Fetch brands itself as either first party or zero party data. And as we continue to grow that base, the applications that we're able to layer on top of the data asset are going to become obviously inherently unique and differentiated, but ultimately create kind of a long withstanding business.
Got it. What do you think most brands are presently underestimating about the consumer, maybe at their own peril?
It's a good question. I think in terms of underestimating, the U.S. consumer is resilient, right? And there are things that the U.S. consumer will continue to buy. Consumer packaged goods is obviously one of them. We have a very strong retail and restaurants business. So there are certain categories that we continue to see a lot of success. I think where we're going to kind of lean into on a go forward might be for that value consumer. So do we see incremental sales uplift at Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart, as opposed to some of the other retailers that might be a little more, the barrier to entry might be a little higher to go into. But then ultimately, are there new categories that you could begin to reward consumers on that they were not thinking about previously? That if their dollar is only going one way and not having any sort of reciprocation, that's really where we're focused.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel Block is head of corporate business development at Fetch. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed the
Thank you.
conversation.
Appreciate the time.
Okay, thanks, man.